Hey, Molly.
Hi.
After talking for 20 minutes. So today I have the immense pleasure of meeting with Molly, the beautiful author of Yes, You Can. I'm totally like goosebumps and just so grateful for Molly and the universe to making this happen. I'm gonna let her share a little bit about herself and take it away. And because everyone that is going to be joining in, they know that I astrologically profile everyone. Will you tell everyone what your signs are as well?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name's Molly. I'm a writer, an author, and I am a Capricorn sun, a Capricorn moon, and a Leo rising. So I make a lot of sense when you get to know me. Yeah, I've been writing for the internet since I think 2012. I started writing for Thought Catalog in college and eventually moved my way as their production intern, then their junior editor. And while working there, I started writing around the web, I suppose, for publications like Teen Vogue, Allure, Glamour, Cosmopolitan. And really what I focus on is mental health and wellness and really how those impact everything in our life, from our lifestyle to our friendships, relationships, and how we present ourselves to the world and how we treat ourselves. And that's really what I focus on. And I'm really interested in diminishing stigma surrounding mental illness. It's something I'm very passionate about. It is something that I've dealt with, and I think the more we dismantle stigma, the more likely people are to seek help, and more likely there can be more funding for help and things like that. So something I'm pretty passionate about.
Well, I can tell you right now that we're going to definitely talk a lot about mental health and mental illnesses. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 18.
Okay.
And very much fight the I am crazy and all the stigmatization that comes around with it. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, because it's true. If we talk about it more, then it isn't so taboo to get help or ask for help or to bring it up in conversation. I don't know what your personal history with it is, but I know for me, I'm not at that place anymore, but it was something that I would struggle with bringing it up when I was working, or
Absolutely.
Even in a friend conversation, just telling people I go to sleep at 9:30 because I'm a grandma, because I need sleep. And it was something that I felt ashamed of. Or I don't drink alcohol. It's not something that I'm like, oh my God, you need to stop drinking. To each their own.
Absolutely.
But I don't like to go to bars. I don't like to go to clubs. I'm also someone that's in recovery. So I need to keep myself in places that are safe. I love that we're moving towards that. We're very much moving towards having these open and honest conversations. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it, and I'm really excited to talk to you, is because when I was 18, it wasn't that you could go around and be like, I'm going to therapy tomorrow. And people would be like, cool. And they're like, what? Why?
Are you okay?
Literally, I remember my freshman year, one of my sorority sisters saw me walking out of the psychiatrist on campus because I was refilling my prescription. She's like, why were you in there? Is something wrong with you? And I lied and I said that I needed to refill for my ADD medication, Adderall, and that's why I was going to the psych. Instead of saying, no, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder because I don't sleep and I tried to self-medicate with drugs.
Yeah. Let me tell you all about my childhood trauma. Are you ready for that? You're like,
yeah. That's one thing I wish we could go from mental illnesses to unresolved trauma. And it's not that I'm trying to say that anxiety and depression and bipolar, that they're very real. But when you break it down, it's trauma.
Yeah, I think it's like a multiple, like, the interesting thing about mental illness, like particular any kind of diagnosis, is each person experiences that diagnosis very differently.
Yeah.
And with that, we have different histories that are bringing to that diagnosis that can definitely contribute to the way that those present. But a lot of it's also, which is really interesting, is like based on the research I've done for like a lot of my reported pieces, a lot of it is really truly biology,
Yeah.
and brain structure. And it is really interesting how some of us do have a predisposition to these types of ailments. But of course, nature versus nurture as a combination of both of those things, which I agree with you. It's trauma does definitely impact. I mean, I have borderline personality disorder, and a lot of that is it's a combination of nature and nurture, right? And they're,
Mm-hmm.
basically it's more of a mood regulation disorder. I don't think the name actually makes a lot of sense. It's not really about my personality. It's more
Yeah.
about emotional regulation. And basically the way it's been described is, people with borderline personality disorder, if they're having, like crying or something, or some kind of, I don't say outburst, but some kind of behavior that doesn't match the situation, it's because they're trying to get a need met.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that was the way they learned how, or the only way they know how. So I did DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and that helped with things like emotional regulation, uh, effective communication in relationships, mindfulness, and oh my God, I'm forgetting the other one. Well, I really did a good job.
It's all good.
Yeah, but yeah, so basically it just kind of teaches you how to be, a little more functional.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said that. So depending on the psychiatrist that you asked, I am bipolar with borderline, bipolar with multiple personality. That's why it's not that I'm trying to take away from the label. It's more of,
I understand.
to me, they're all, the only one that I'm going to take and put out here is schizophrenia, because I doubt that people are not getting misdiagnosed schizophrenic. Well, I mean, they are, but not as much. But when you're talking about all of these moods, because they are, what is
The mood disorder.
what does double personality have to do with a mood disorder? So then when you talk to people, they're like, it's because something's wrong with their personality. And I'm like, what? No, it's because they change personality. No, what? And it's because you're trying to guess the name. Or like, one thing that I would eat at me is when people would say, oh, the weather is so bipolar. I'm like, really? The weather can have emotions and mood swings? Oh my goodness.
You were lithium. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, it was a thing, and people would
I
like,
hate that. Yeah,
it would bother me so much, because I'm like, and I would have friends that are well aware, and they would be like, dude, the weather in Colorado is so bipolar. And I'm like, did you just literally just say that? Yeah. Is that rude? How would you feel if I said, oh, the weather's so diabetic? Like, I wouldn't say that. It's a very uncalled for thing. Or how would you feel if I'm like, oh, the weather's so Michelle? And my friend's like, I don't get what you're doing. And I'm like, you're trying to describe the weather with a mood imbalance. I don't understand that. And that's where I go back to, it's not that I'm just saying I'm not trying to just be like, it's just unresolved trauma. But what you were talking about, emotional regulation. When you start looking at a lot of these mood disorders, you weren't taught how to regulate your own emotions. So you are reacting in a lot of the same ways. And then it's really easy to just slap the label onto someone and say, here, take medication, go on, you'll be fine. And then you're not. Because you can't just give someone a pill and expect everything to be okay. You need, and some people don't work with DBT, but like DBT, talk therapy, somatic, like there's so many different modalities. And I really want people to realize it's not this, I'm going to take a pill today and in 3 months I'm going to be okay. Because that was very much the messaging that I got. You take a pill, you go to sleep, you fill out your mood journal, and you're good to go. And I kept getting psychotic, and I kept having hallucinations, and I was more out of it than I was in reality. And it wasn't until I realized, when I started to do more alternative stuff, when they're like, you don't even know how you feel. And I'm like, no. And it was, I've never felt I've never felt safe embracing my emotions. So I could feel what you were saying. And I'm like, Why aren't we talking about it like that? Why are we focusing so much on the chemical imbalance where you can't take empowerment from that? There's nowhere where I can be like, oh, I have a chemical imbalance. I feel empowered by that, because I can't do anything to change that imbalance. I can't change the fact that my mom went into distress when she was having me, which caused her body to produce more cortisol and adrenaline, which then created that I was born with more cortisol and adrenaline, which created a deficiency in how I don't produce as much dopamine or serotonin and all of these things. You don't have anything that you can do for that. Unless you have a machine that I don't know about, which, man, if you do, please let me know that. It's going to take you back into time. That's not going to do anything. But talking about the different modalities and telling people like, look, it's not that I'm saying I'm fixed and I'm cured and here I am, the almighty, nothing happens. It's more of, look what happens when I start actually learning about myself and I'm not scared of what's inside. Because for me, it was this, I'd rather just take the pills. I don't have to do anything. I can just take the pills. Take the pills. I don't have to do anything. And when the pills weren't working and the doctors were like, you're going to have to start doing stuff, it sucked because I needed to look at all of my shit. And it wasn't the typical just, I needed to like go back to 0 to 7 and really see what had happened there, to learn how I learned why when someone said something, I completely shut off. And if someone's yelling at me, I am not listening. I completely dissociate. And it still happens. If people start yelling at me, I'm just like, but now it makes sense. When I was little and the teachers, and this was something my mom was talking to me about, she's like, you would be in class and the teachers would start saying something. And if the pitch got too loud, you would zone out. And then the teachers would call and say, hey, she's not paying attention. Now she's like, it's not that you weren't paying attention. It was that if you felt like anyone was raising their voice because your dad did that, you were just like, I'm not dealing with this. So I would literally, at first I would start doing this. And then I just became really good at dissociating. So now it happens that if I have anyone that raises their voice, I'm literally like, I can now say, hey, you're going to a tone that does not match me. If you keep going that way, I will walk away. And if you're in my house, I will tell you to leave. And that's boundaries. My mom didn't know that. My dad didn't know that. They didn't teach me that. But we don't talk about that enough. We focus so much on the label. And I want people to know, not trying to dismiss it or disempower what your journey or anything, because that would be saying, hey, I didn't live through 8 years of this. And that's not what I'm saying. It's more of, how can you how can you go from here? Because it's not going to change. It's what you were saying. How can we go from, okay, this sucks, but what can I learn from this? Because it's not going to go away. It's not like I don't wake up some days and I don't feel a little depressed. It's not like I don't wake up some days or some nights and it's 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, I haven't slept and I'm really not tired. And I really don't want to go to sleep. It still happens. And I'm sure you still have the tendencies and things that come up that you're like, ooh, you're creeping up. I forgot about you. Right?
I think what it's important is a multifaceted approach, and also a one that is unique to the individual. A friend of mine years ago told me she was in school for becoming a psychologist, and diagnoses are more tools to help people get the treatment that would best fit them based on what's available. So I was actually diagnosed with bipolar when I was 15. It didn't make sense for me because I didn't have any mania. I was mostly just really sad. Really? But that was how they could get me the assistance I needed that they thought would help given some of the symptoms I was experiencing. I will say I do take medication and it's been wonderfully helpful for me, but it's something you can't just do on you can't just take I'm gonna take a Abilify and I'll be fine. Like I'm also in therapy, exercise, getting into meditation, journaling, really just basic self-care. But it is a multifaceted approach. I like that you said there's so many modalities, and that's very true. I think it's just doing what works for you, understanding what doesn't work for you. And I like that you also say don't getting too attached to a label, because these things don't define us. They're part of us, they're part of our journey. And like, for example, like you wouldn't say someone who's diabetic, like you wouldn't define them by their pancreas's inability to produce insulin. That'd be psychotic. Just like, okay, my brain doesn't produce enough serotonin. Cool. Where do you want to get food? Like, it doesn't define us. It's part of our stories, but there's so many more interesting things about us than what our mental illnesses may or may not be, right? So, like, I'm a writer, you're a writer, like, we readers, like, I'm a good friend, you're a good friend, you're a Gemini, like, things about us than any, like, mood swings or anything like that, because there's just more to us than these, like, things that we're ashamed of. I mean, no shame, but also don't define yourself, which I appreciate you saying. The whole thing, like, these labels shouldn't always stick to us. I mean, they're just part of our treatment.
What you said is true. It is, I think it's more of a tool for the support system to help you.
Exactly.
But there is a time and place when you do need a disconnect. And I'm not trying to say it enough. It's more of just, I've lived there, and right. I was there where anytime that someone said anything, I would literally be like, I have a chemical imbalance. You don't understand. And that was my go-to to cover up and not let anyone.
What? Sorry, I missed that. You said you have.
I would literally, like, anytime that someone was like, dude, you're not reacting. Anytime that anyone would criticize anything and I didn't feel like it was a safe place, I'd be like, I have a chemical imbalance. You don't know what you're talking about. Leave me alone.
I see.
You don't understand. And it was.
Right.
And I see it all the time.
People.
It is. Or this was like my go-to. And I laugh because my therapist, she brings it up all the time. She's like, do you remember when you had a tantrum over this? And I'm like, yes. And I was
bringing it up.
literally, I'm like, thank you for bringing it up. You really know how to make a girl feel good. But it was, I would love to use anxiety for everything. Hey, how are you feeling? I'm anxious. Okay, what does that mean? And I was so disconnected from my life that I didn't know what that meant. I was just like, I'm anxious. And finally one day, she's like, I'm tired of you answering that every single time that I ask you how you're doing. Doesn't matter what you've had that day, that is your go-to response. What does that mean? And I wanted to hit her. I was like, you're a doctor. Don't you know what that means? I'm like, isn't that what my mom's paying you for? And she looked at me and she was like, get off your high horse. But it made me start questioning how I use the word anxiety and how I use my diagnosis to defend myself and defend my behaviors. And I laugh because it was like I got mirrors of all of that as I was recognizing that. And I would call her, I'm like, why is it that everyone is doing this to me now? And she would laugh. She's like, this is hilarious. You were finally being met with your mirrors. Have fun. And it was horrible because it was almost a sense of, I feel like I'm talking to me, but I'm not, because I'm not getting any more answers. And it wasn't until I moved to Colorado that I was working in sales, and I genuinely feel like the universe was like putting people in my life that represented different phases of my journey with my diagnosis. Like literally it was like, this was you when you were first diagnosed. This was you 2 years after. It was like, I was like, oh my goodness, holy crap. And there was this girl that she would literally use anxiety. And I remember calling my therapist and I'm like, now I know how you feel. She's like, why? Anytime that I say anything, and it has nothing to do with anxiety. Like I could be like, hey dude, that's my sandwich. I'm anxious and I didn't realize it. Like it was that bad. And I remember just getting like ultra triggered. And she asked me, she's like, don't do it the way that you would typically do it, but just start a conversation. So I started asking her, I'm like, how are you feeling? And she would do the same thing I did. She's like, I'm anxious. And I'm like, yeah, I totally feel that. That happens. Is it like anxious, scared? And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah. Or is it like anxious, overwhelmed? Or is it like anxious, like you can't breathe. Like I was just trying to like do, and that created this sense of, and I started to kind of realize we do it as a way to protect ourselves. It's a way to kind of like, I'm not letting you in. And especially when you've lived in a place of trauma, even if it's big or small, when you have low worth, when you're insecure, when you haven't been given all of these things, it's harder to know how you're feeling because you weren't taught. And it made me realize, wow, it's not like we're doing this because at first I'm like, am I doing this just to be mean? And I realized, no, it's a learned behavior, just like everything else in life. It's a learned behavior. And when I really started to kind of push a little bit more, we use it as a way to keep ourselves in this little protective bubble. And that's when I say, I'm not talking about how you choose to heal. You do what works for you. Again, it's such an individual case. I cannot, like, it's my biggest pet peeve when people are like, what did you do? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. Why? Because we are two different people. Because my brother can't even do what I did. Like, that's how different we are. You and I are not going to react to the same thing. Why? Because I might see the sky blue and you might see it green. Simple as that. And that's the message that I like really want to push. It's not a one size fit all, but it's also
100%. Absolutely
so
not.
it's not like you can go like, I don't like it when people are like, well, this person online, she posted this, and I'm like, cool, that's right. Amazing. I'm happy for her. And I'm great that you can recognize that in her. That doesn't mean that now you need to compare yourself to this person. And if you're not there, then it's bad. And I'm like, no, because you're just creating more of a disconnect. What I'm saying is the label exists. It's there. Own it in a way like this isn't owning you, that if someone brings it up and you feel small, but don't let it be defined you, that when you're introducing yourself to people, that's the first thing that you're gonna say to kind of keep this wall so that no one enters. It's more of just like, someone literally told me, when you meet someone, you don't say, hey, can I have your medical records? Like, you would never say that to someone. So why would you literally include this to a person you just met? And that's where I'm like, that label ownness, no, it's own your story. The label was just given to help you make sense of the situation and get the help that you need, not for you to now victimize yourself and tell yourself that I can't have what this person has because I have this. It's like, you don't know if she has that, and she might not talk about it. You also don't know if she hasn't, like we don't know anything. And if 2020 has taught us anything, it's we don't know what people are genuinely thinking, feeling, processing, their perspective, and trying to say that because that person, like, I got this a lot in my thing where people would tell me, just go run. And I'm like, what? Yeah, just go run when you're having a bad day. Just go run. And I'm like,
wow, I never thought of that. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Do you want $1 million for that one? You think my therapist hasn't been telling me this since I was 13? Thank you for that one. Wow, groundbreaking news. I'm well aware. We all know that we need to eat healthy, that we need to exercise. But when you're in it and you're like, I don't want to do anything, that is just going to make you tell a person, what are you talking about? Literally. But if you're like, hey, you're having a bad day, let's talk about you having a bad day. What's going on? What's really going on? Not just check in with you so that I feel good, like I checked in on you. It's like, really, what's going on? And then, okay, I see what you're going through. Why don't we go on a run? Why don't we go on a walk? Why? And it's not putting it on the person to go. It's let's do this so that the person doesn't feel so alone. And it's not becoming this obstacle that you have to do. Because I remember my doctor, you need to meditate every morning. And I was like, I want to slap you right now. Like, I want to slap you. You think I don't want to meditate? But then I think about everything that goes on the day before, and I think about everything I need to do that day. And I don't want to meditate. It's uncomfortable. It sucks. And when she finally told me, good, I was like, what? Yeah, it's gonna suck. You don't like staying still. You like to distract yourself constantly. It's never gonna be something that you're like, oh, that's just not your personality. You have been groomed to run on chaos. You've been doing this for 25 years. You can't expect it to go away in a month or a year or
A
3
lot of
years.
unlearning and a lot of unpacking and
And
rerouting.
that was like, oh my God, I don't have to do this all now, because it's like this, it's this
It's a journey.
race.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And that's why I really want people to realize this, especially right now, because we feel so isolated and we're so disconnected. And it's like, dude, I do this. I will pick up the phone. I don't do it with a lot of people because I know how my energy is, and I will call someone for 15, 20, 30 minutes, however they need. And it's like, how can I be here for you? And sometimes they're like, no, how are you? I'm like, this wasn't about me. This is about you. Like, are you going through something? Like, no, like, I'm really good. I just really want to be here for you because I can hold that space right now. Maybe in a week I might not be able to. So let me be here for you now. And at first, people were kind of like, this is a weird dynamic. Normally it's the other way around. But it started to create a sense of, wow, we're not alone in this crazy uncertainty of a world. And that's all we really want. Like, when you're thinking about all those unmet needs, what is it? You want to be accepted. You want to be loved. You want to be secure. Yeah, there's a few other things that we want, but they all boil down to, you want to be accepted, you want to be loved, and you want to make sure that you're safe, you're secure, nothing's going to happen. No one's going to slap you or beat you if you say no, or if you're like, I don't want to. I don't like orange juice. Like, that was my thing in kindergarten. My teacher, because I didn't speak English and I only knew how to say no, she would give me orange juice and I was like, no. And she would like force me to drink it. I was like, oh, no. No. And I couldn't explain to her why. And then finally, when I started talking, I was like, I don't like this orange juice. It tastes weird. And she's like, I thought you just didn't like to talk. And I'm like, no, I don't speak English. What?
Read the room, lady.
I'm like, how did you not know this? But yeah, it's like, it's changed. I want to create a conversation where we're empowered, not victimized and disempowered.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
you said it yourself. Do you feel disempowered because you're diabetic? No. But why is it? Because it's with the mind. We have to have this, like, this is bad. You're doing something bad.
I think it's like what it comes down to, what we talked about in our first 20 minutes, is the stigma behind everything. And I don't know. I think that, like, on the subject of empowerment that you just brought up, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I wrote, Say Yes to Yourself, about. And it really was about trying to help people feel empowered in their own life and their own decisions and their own goals. And it was a really fun project to work on. And I really do hope the lessons throughout the book, so basically the way it's formatted, you saw it, but for everyone else here, I have lessons throughout the book, and with those lessons, there are little charts if you need them to help understand the concept more of the lesson, or like inspirational quotes that go alongside that idea. And I really just want everyone to know that, like, you're okay as you are, mental illness or not, and you're deep in your career or not, like, wherever you're at in your journey is okay, because it's yours, and you're meant to be, based on everything that's happened in your life leading up to it. Of course, you're where you are, but where you have been doesn't designate where you're going. That's up to you in that moment to figure out how to work towards what you want and need in your life. That's kind of what I hope this book can help people realize.
I mean, it helped me.
I'm so happy. Thank you. I'm so glad.
It literally helped me. So I have your book on my coffee table, and throughout the day I pick up yours and this book that I have, just kind of to, like, give me a little bit of, like, a pep or something. And it's like I mentioned earlier, I always feel like it's exactly what I need. Like, I'm probably like, and it's never the same page. I'll just kind of go like this and I'm like, okay, what do I need to learn? And then I'm like, huh, this was something
So
that I'm
happy.
thinking about earlier. And it's just like so interesting because I like that you're doing things that people, they're actionable steps that we can take. And they're not like these like, because we all do this. Tomorrow, I'm gonna run a mile. I'm gonna meditate for 30 minutes. I'm gonna do yoga. I'm gonna journal for an hour. And
Oh, me, Capricorn. Yeah.
yeah, you're like, oh yeah. I always like this. I will say this. This is one thing that I like laugh about internally. Anytime that I talk to someone and they tell me about their morning and evening, which I'm like, oh, I like all of it. I'm gonna try that tomorrow.
I'm gonna do all of it.
I'm gonna do all of it. And then I'm like, probably like 30 minutes in, my Gemini starts to kick in, and I'm like, actually, I really don't want to do all of this. This sounded like fun in theory, but
practice is a different story. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, I laugh because I'm the person that wants to try it all.
Oh.
When I'm actually trying, I'm like, about that. Not as fun as I wanted it to be. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I just think that, I mean, we all move through this world so differently. And like you said, it's just owning your story. And remember, you hold the pen, it's your narrative. And don't give up your power. Don't give the pen to someone else. It's yours.
I love that.
I have been someone who definitely has gotten wrapped up in other people's opinions of me and the way other people interpret me. And of course, that matters. We're human beings. We're pack people. But I'm learning which people's opinions I hold close and whose I can kind of, thank you for your input. I'm going to leave now, Something I saw recently I thought was really helpful was don't take advice from someone you wouldn't take criticism from.
I like that. I was actually going to ask you about that because you're writing about, I mean, I'm not trying to say that other people's writings is, but you're writing about something that's very taboo in our culture because it is. And you've been writing about it for a while because you were noticing. Yeah, it's like you talked about Cosmo, Glamour, like all of these really big name publications. Did it ever, when you were putting yourself out there, how did you deal with, people's opinions or maybe thinking, wow, this is a little bit out there? Because I know that's something that I definitely struggle with, and I'm in the journey of owning is my own voice. I have to acknowledge that I think very radical. Like that's just me, and I question everything. Yeah, it's being a Gemini. It's like true story. This was, and I laughed at my friend because I was like, you really don't know me if you sent me an article about mask. I was doing an Instagram live, and this was just me. Again, I want to say I'm a Gemini, so I question everything. This isn't like I'm questioning the mask, but I was just like, what really does the mask do? Because if you're wearing a mask and you're 6 feet away and there's someone smoking a cigarette, you're breathing in that air. And it was just, again, me being a Gemini, I was just like curious. I don't understand how the masks work. So, but that was it. It was literally that. And people were kind of bringing in other information and saying stuff. I had a friend email me an article on why the masks work. And I was just like, do you know me at all? She's like, why? I'm like, this is funded by the US. This is funded by someone that wanted to prove that the masks are beneficial because they're selling masks. How do you know that? I'm like, do you know who I am? I question everything. If you're giving me something to read, I'm not going to just be like, oh, this is right. I'm going to be like, this is interesting. Wait, why are you saying this? What made you say this? Like, that's just me. Like, if I'm having you face to face and you tell me right now, I really want to go up that rock. Have you ever been up that rock before? Do you rock climb? No. Are you going to jump off the rock? No, I just want to go up the rock. like, are you going to use harness? Like, I come up with 20 million questions based on one thing. And that's for everything. Like, I literally had a police officer in front of me the other day, and I was just like, do you really want to be wearing that mask right now? And do you put the mask on before you interact with someone? And he's like, why are you asking me all this? I just am curious if you're really following protocol when something bad happens, or if you're just like, I need to act. And he looks at me and he's like, if someone's burning, I'm not going to worry about the 6 feet and the mask. I'm going to go help the person. I'm like, interesting, but I'm sure you can't say this to a news person. He's like, are you a news person? I'm like, no, I'm just a very weird kid that's in a 30-year-old body. So yeah. Are you done? No. What other protocols do you need to follow right now that nobody's telling us about? And he's just like, what? I'm like, are you doing different things that we're not doing? Do you put hand sanitizer on before and after you pick up your, like, all these things? And my friend's like, will you stop harassing the cop? And I'm like, I need to make sure. That's just me. So I question literally everything. It's not me saying that the person's lying. It's just, to me, there's no real facts. Like, I'm like, what is a fact? What do you mean, what's a fact? We thought that genes were genetic for a really long time, and now we realize that environments also affect our genes. So it's like, how can I ever take this as an actual fact? But I take that in as a play also. So I love when people can kind of be like, you're a Gemini, that's just you being you. That's not you questioning me. But it comes up a lot where I'm like, am I being too out there with what I'm saying? Am I going to hurt someone's feelings by like making this comment? Am I going to, like, all of these things? And you being a Capricorn, you're more logical about it, but you guys still care. Like, I feel like Aquariuses, man, they're awesome. They don't care about what people think. They're like, I'm me, who cares? There's some Aquarius that do, but most of them don't. But I feel like Capricorn, Virgos, like that earth energy, you guys very much, you're trying to keep everyone grounded. I feel like you want that kind of, or am I mistaken?
I mean, I do think I still get wrapped up in others' opinions and like, but I think it's become more manageable as I'm getting older, as I'm growing into myself more. I'm kind of just like, it just doesn't matter anymore, especially when you see particular people. I'm not going to go there, but
I already know where you were going. This is how I know.
Post wacky stuff on Facebook. You're like, and I was scared of you, and then you realize that nothing matters.
Oh my God, that's true.
I'm just kidding. I mean, things matter, but like,
no, but
and no, we're such a blip on the radar. Like, okay, like that one, you say something stupid on a date. Okay, it's okay.
Okay, I just need to say this because I really want to know what you have to say to this, because I'm just like, man, I bet she's going to say something awesome.
Oh God. Ready.
So I just thought of Trump right now. I'm like, and all the stupid shit he said.
Oh boy. I learned.
Like, that's perfect. No, it's just like, I genuinely, that's someone I laugh all the time, because I'm like, I would love to be able to sit with him and just be like, when you write your tweets, what the goes through your mind? Like,
nothing good.
Like, do you think that, like I want to know, are you thinking before you're speaking at all? Like, yeah. But no, I think the fact that we have that as an example, we really are just a blimp in someone's day. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on like the person. I mean, the president, and you know.
I mean, that's
I think he kind of matters just because of the way his policy and everything that shapes other people's futures, and that kind of matters. But Molly Burford going on a date with a guy once at a dive bar and saying something stupid, which I've done many times, doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, no, but I meant it more in the sense, I'm not saying that him being a president, but it's just more of like, if we can allow literally our president to say the stupidest things, then you as an individual that does not have this big
right
collective impact, why are we putting more emphasis? That was more of what I was like just thinking of, like,
I understand. Yeah.
you get what I'm saying?
It's a
Like,
long day. I'm sorry.
no, you're good, you're good. It's just like, it's true. Like, why would it be more of, if you go out on a date and you say something dumb, like, why are you blowing that one comment out of proportion when we literally have someone speaking out of their ass that's leading our country?
True. That is true.
Like, it just when you, it made me think, I'm like, well, really, it does, like, why does it matter? Like, if,
Like the Maya Angelou quote, people will forget what you said, people forget what you do, but they'll never forget how you make them feel, kind of thing.
yeah,
So like worst case, if you say something awkward, they're probably just going to imagine the date as a whole, not that one moment. So, and even if that one day as a whole didn't go well, okay, it's fine.
it is. I mean, man, she's, speaking of Maya Angelou, she's one of those, I want to bring her back to life and chat with her. I'd love to. She's someone that I'm just like, her books, they speak to me on some sort of level. But I was going to say that about your writing. When you write, so I love reading your Instagram captions.
Oh.
And they're not these like long things, but it's like, I feel like it's a poem to like my soul. It's like when I'm reading, I'm like you were mentioning something. It was like, it's a really old one. This is how you guys know that I'm a stalker on Instagram.
You're an investigative journalist. You're not a stalker.
So like that.
Write the narrative.
Talking about, you were having, I think you went for a walk and you like posted a picture and it had your phone.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? And I was like reading that and I'm just like, man, you're speaking to my soul right now. And like, I just got lost looking at your Instagram caption so randomly.
Away. That's why it's there.
Your Instagram, like, let's see what she has to say today.
I never shut up, so.
Hey, own your Leo rising.
Oh, do I ever?
Do you? Wait, you're going to actually find this hilarious. So I'm not going to say all Leos, but typically Leo rising, Leo moon, or like Leo sun, you guys have like very big eyebrows or like big hair. Not always, but like it's sometimes. So there's this guy that I'm talking to and I'm like, what's your sign? And he's like, guess. And God, it drives me crazy when people say that. So I'm just like, no, you don't tell a Gemini to guess.
Tell me.
Fucking tell me, literally. So normally when they say guess, I go with Virgo or Scorpio because I'm like, oh, you're the only two that are literally that just like, I laugh because I had a Virgo ask me, he's like, I got it. Normally I'm like, what's your sign? But every once in a while, I'll kind of get like a tinkling sensation that I'm like, I think I'm talking to like a Virgo. So I'm like, hey, can I ask you what your sign is? And he's like, yeah, you can. I'm like, you're such a Virgo. How did you know that? I'm like, you're the only person that literally waits. You're like, yes, you can. Most people are like, oh yeah, I'm this. You're like, yeah, you can ask me. And you're waiting for me to now ask you. Versus this guy, he's just like, no. And something in me wanted to say Leo, but I'm like, but you don't have like big eyebrows. And also you don't have, your hair shaped it really low. And he starts laughing and he's like, oh, it shows you how much you know because I am a Leo.
Oh my gosh.
And he was a triple Leo and I laughed because I was
wow, what a trip.
Oh, I will tell you, I like Leos. You guys are awesome to be around because you very much bring me out of my shell, but I cannot date a Leo. God, oh my God, no. 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 I'm too out there for a triple Leo. I was too out there. We went out and I asked the bartender, I was like, what's your sign? You have a good energy. And he's like, are you going to do this with everyone? I'm like, oh God, if this bothers you, we should not go out after this. Like,
listen, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. But unfortunately, I do have to get going.
No. Thank you for, oh yeah, that's totally fine. No. Thank you. Really quick before you leave, if you could say anything to your 12-year-old you, what would you say?
It gets better.
Like that. And then, what were you going to say? I'm sorry?
You deserve to get better. That's what I would say. 12-year-old Molly.
Oh man, I felt that. And then because we talked about your grandma earlier, do you have anything to say to her? It doesn't have to be anything too personal, but just, I know that.
Yeah, I miss you.
So I am going to honor this to your grandma, this particular video, because we did talk about this beforehand, and
That means a lot.
I can feel her energy.
She's right here. All right, we have we all, for her 80th birthday, she gave us all these. She has 15 grandkids, and then all of her, so I keep it on my desk.
15 grandkids?
6 kids, lady.
Oh my God.
Catholic.
Wait, what's her sign? No, I'm just curious.
She was whatever December 28th is.
Capricorn.
Mary was a Capricorn.
Oh, Mary the Capricorn. All right. Well, Molly, Mary. Oh, that's so cute. Well, Mary. All right. Molly, thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you so much for talking to me.
I'm so grateful for this. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Good luck with your quarantine, and because I know you're going to be isolated for a couple of weeks, and enjoy the time with your family. I know
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Seriously. Thank you so much. And I'll email you so that I can have everything to put in the description notes so that people can go and follow you. Yeah, I was going to say, where can they find you? Instagram. Molly, what's your Instagram? I'm like, I know, I follow you.
At Molly Burford.
There you go. And same website, at Molly Burford?
It's mollyburford.com.
All right, perfect, guys.
She's a work in progress. We're working on it. Like we all are working on ourselves.
I was about to say that. I'm like, aren't we all work in progresses?
Work's never done.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a magical rest of your day and week. And hey, I'm going to email you at the beginning of Capricorn season and be like, yo, Capricorn, good luck with your energy.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Have fun with the Sagittarius eclipse on the 14th, 15th.
Sounds good. Thank you. It was seriously so nice to meet you.
It was really, really, really nice to meet you. If you're ever in Denver, let me know.
I'm going to go back when it's safe to travel again. I wanted to, because I moved during the pandemic. So I didn't get to do my goodbye tour. So I'm going back.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hitting you up.
Girl, when you come back, you got to let me know. Even if I'm like 12 feet away from you, I'm like, Molly, hi.
Oh, no, I will let you know for sure. I think probably next year sometime when it's safe.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. Well, enjoy the time in, you're in Michigan. Yeah, Michigan.
Yes. I'm in
part of Michigan?
Freezing today. Pardon?
What part of Michigan?
Just outside Detroit.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, all right. Well, yeah, you guys are definitely cold.
Thank you.
Stay warm and have a good day. Bye.
Bye.